All right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to Autodesk Virtual Academy, brought to you by your friends here at KETIV Technologies. I'm Nigel Mbayak, one of the customer success managers here at KETIV, and your host for today and just about all other days. So really excited to be here, still working from home, but that doesn't mean we won't give you guys good content every week, and this week is no different. So this week I'm excited to share with you some of the what's new in Fusion 360, but I won't be doing it myself. We've brought over some of our friends from Autodesk, Bryce, Heventhal, and then Rob Cohee as well. So Bryce and Rob work at Autodesk. They're not, they're our friends over there at Autodesk, and they decided they wanted to help us present this. It's really important to both of them to make sure we get the word out. We've done what's news for Inventor, AutoCAD, and Vault 2021. The way that Fusion releases is a little bit different. I'm sure they'll explain that moving forward. But this is just another one of those platforms for us to show you what they're doing with the technology and kind of give you also a roadmap of what's coming in the future.
Thanks for the introduction, Nigel.
Absolutely. Let's get going.
Yeah, so we have a jam-packed agenda today. So we're going to start off with some what's new, what currently has come out in the past couple months in Fusion. I know we constantly update every day, every week essentially, whether it's the browser, the mobile client, the desktop client. And then Rob Cohee is going to join me and go through a little bit of a roadmap, sneak peek of what's coming, all the cool stuff that's coming to Fusion 360. I'm excited. I saw it earlier. I hope you guys are excited as well. But when we get started, so our presenter today, I'm Bryce. That was me prior to my COVID beard. So I'm the manager of the technical marketing and technical sales for Fusion 360. I've been here since the beginning of Fusion, about 6 years ago now. Geez. And prior to that, I was in the channel selling SolidWorks and in the industry before that. So I've got a pretty good background around CAD, and I'm really excited the direction and Fusion 360 is going. And I'll let Rob introduce himself.
Yeah, so I'm Rob Cohee. My team looks after product management for Fusion 360 in the area of design and documentation. So I usually summarize it as all things 2D and 3D in the product are what we look after. I've been with Autodesk for 14 years. Prior to that, I was with a partner like KETIV for 6 years. And prior to that, I was a customer like yourselves. So definitely we try to take Bryce mentioned as well, he was a customer as well. We try to take a customer-centric point of view to how we prioritize the things we put in the product. So I'm excited to show you what we have today.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. So before you start asking what's new, there is so much coming into the product every week, every month. It's hard to keep track of all the stuff. I highly recommend going over to the Fusion 360 blog. Kaching is constantly writing up some funny narratives to everything that's been implemented in the product, and it gets super nitty-gritty details if you want to nerd out on some of the fun functionality that we're adding. Alternatively, if you love to hear my voice, we make what's new content for every major release. So we have YouTube videos for both manufacturing, designing, engineering, and now even electronics. We have what's new across the board, so we kind of demonstrate different workflows, like your use cases as if I were a customer, how I would use these features. Outside of that, coming next week, this is a little sneak preview, is we're going to be publishing our roadmap across the board. So it'll be, if you want to get a little detail where we're going over the next 3 to 6 to 12 months, make sure to check out our blog next week to see what's coming within the roadmap. But in the last couple of months, I was looking back, and man, every time I look back and see even the past 3 months what's been added, we've had a couple big ones that I've been excited about. And this is just this year in 2020, and it's been a long time. I've been with Fusion ever since the beginning. We didn't even have drawings. We had no XREFs. Now, every year when I look back, it's insane to go look what's been adding, even just month over month right now. So we're going to jump into a few of these. These are some of the big highlights that we're going to talk about. Specifically, some of my favorites are the new 3D sketch and edit in place. But if you haven't looked at further, we're only going to be able to touch a few of the big ones. I would highly recommend like I said, looking at the blog or the YouTube and seeing some other functionality. Because when I was counting, I was just taking screenshots. There was just tons of different content, and I could talk to you probably for 24 hours straight if I could stay up that long, just on all the new functionality that's come in this year alone. So the product manager, Rob, and his team has been just killing it, just bringing in really feature-rich functionality that you guys have been requesting. So I'm extremely excited to jump into some of those. So without further ado, I'll jump into Fusion and get started. Starting off with a blank canvas, and my first one that I'm going to go through is 3D Sketch. And 3D Sketch, I've used quite a few different CAD tools out there. And with Fusion, we're not trying to come in and copy any of those CAD tools. Those were built 30 years ago, and really they didn't have all this foundational information that we really need now because of the way we design and engineer products. So we're trying to constantly innovate how we implement this technology. For example, a lot of the other CAD tools out there, they have a 2D and a 3D sketch environment. So you have to pick kind of which one up front you want to use. That really kind of disables you from switching. Like if I started a 2D sketch, create all this stuff, and then switch to a 3D sketch, you have to do a couple of weird workflows where you like project and then like break links. But here within Fusion, when you jump into a sketch environment, our 2D and 3D sketch solver are within the same sketch tool. So you still have to start by selecting a 2D sketch. Let me get the video out of the way. But you'll see now in the sidebar, there's a checkbox for 2D and 3D sketch. So I always notice when I'm in a 3D sketch because this little triad comes up. But if I turn that off, you'll see that that triad goes away and I'm just in 2D sketch mode. So let's just start with that 3D sketch on and jump in and start the line. So first you'll know that I have this weird triad here, and I'm going to go through a couple quick workflows on how I think 3D sketch is differentiated. The first one, just easy drawing. If you're just doing orthogonal, you'll notice that this locks on to the X, Y, and Z coordinate axes without really doing anything. I'm just hovering around and it'll just be there. So I could come down this axis and quickly draw out like a frame if I needed to. Let's restart that real quick and just double click and delete that. Now, let's say I want to come in here and we'll create a line. You'll see that I have these planes, these 3 planes, and you'll notice right now the bottom one is blue. That is my active sketch plane. So I could jump on to different planes by just clicking on them, and you'll see that my little sketch grid is just hopping around. Alternatively, if you want to cycle, for those pros out there, if you know this one, I'll be surprised. If you just tap Alt or Option, it cycles between them. So if you're getting into fast, quick 3D sketching, make sure you know those. So I could come up here, select this guy, jump over there, and really just quickly pan a little bit, draw out some sort of frame that I needed to do. So that's my first little tips and tricks where I think we've really differentiated how we did 3D sketch. This next one kind of blows my mind a little bit, and I still love it. So I'm gonna draw that same like kind of frame out. So we'll start coming up here, but instead of jumping onto that plane, what would that be? The YZ plane. I'm gonna grab these little rotation rings, and you'll notice what these rotation rings will do is they actually alter like my 3D sketch space. So you'll see my sketch grid. I love watching that just come up, and I could lock it to like 30 degrees if I wanted to, maybe 45. And now you'll see that my plane is stuck on that while I can continue to sketch out. So we could sketch that out, bring this back if I needed to, and continue sketching. So this is one of the fastest 3D sketchers I've had. There's a lot of other sketch tools where I would have to like leave the sketch environment, create some plane at this 45-degree angle, and then come back. Here I could just quickly sketch that out. The last one that I have, got a little crazy there. Sorry, hit the wrong button. the last tip I have is one that I used to use a little bit of Rhino back in the day. Don't call me a master at all, because I'm definitely not. But you'll see that I'm sketching on this XY plane. This one is a little hidden trick. So let's say I wanted to come out, I don't know, maybe like 75. And now I want to go up the y-axis in this case. So if I hit the up arrow on my keyboard, what it does is it locks me on that point. So I'm now just stuck in X and Y space, or in this case, X and Z space, but traveling up the Y. So you could do really tricky sketching with that tool. So that hotkey was up. So just to reiterate all those hotkeys that I had. So Alt cycles the planes. The one I forgot to mention is Tab actually cycles the rotation rings. You'll see those go through. And then finally, that up arrow was the one that locks me on that X, locks me whether I was in X, Y or Y, Z. It pops me in that direction upwards. So one of my favorite tricks in 3D sketches. No, go ahead and delete that. And there's my demo for 3D sketching. So this one, I have to give credit to Rob here. He made this himself, but there's some really cool stuff with edit in place. So I have currently you'll notice that I have a couple XRefs within this modeler. Like I said, when I started Fusion, here at Fusion, we didn't even have XRefs. So we've made a ton of improvements to make this experience better. And especially what we're trying to solve is people working on the same assembly at the same time. So collaborative design, and with Fusion, that means collaborative design from anywhere at any time. Because of our cloud nature, it's so much easier to be able to interact with the data, because Rob's at home, he's not able to access the same server as I am, so he can jump on the same file and edit these with me. But first, I have a quick trick. So what I've done so far, I created a blank document. I just create a new document, hit save, and that's it. And I called it MCAP. So this is Rob has coined this one, so I'll give him credit for this quick tip. He's an old dog, but he's still teaching me new tricks. So I'm going to go ahead and insert that in my current design. And what that is you'll notice it just places it at the origin, and there's nothing to it. I'm just going to hit OK. Now I'm going to go and edit that end cap, and now let's start designing. So this is just a warning saying that it created an associativity. Let me close my data panel for you guys. So now we'll just, I don't know, let's create a sketch here. Project in that face. Let's extrude this. And let's grab that, why not? There we go. I don't know, what do you guys want to do now? Just playing at this point. Let's grab, by the way, if you haven't used the S key, I'm a huge fan, as you notice. I use so many shortcuts and hotkeys, and definitely use your S key, because I could just start typing circle and find all my circle tools. I definitely want my center diameter circle. Let's just get that guy. I don't know, let's make that 35. Let's extrude that, make something simple. Because what I'm about to show you is going to be the fun part. So I really haven't done much. I just created a sketch, a couple extrudes. I don't know if you want to like fillet something, make this a little less boxy. Oh, it's going to be too much work. We'll come back and do that later. I'm going to exit my edit in place. And you'll notice what it does is it links it, and we have this thing called an assembly context, which I'll get to in a minute. So let's go ahead and open this new design, that blank design originally. And you know what I forgot to do? Rob knows what I forgot to do. I forgot to save. Let me just save that. Added end cap.
I was going to interrupt, but you called me an old dog, so.
Yeah, you'll be a little bit mad there, I imagine. So let's open that. And this is where I think we've done a great job at implementing something different. We just haven't done the stereotypical what other CAD tools have done. So if you look, I'm first just modeling here, but what I was talking about earlier was that assembly context. Right now I'm at the local context. What I can do is now say I want to go to context 1, and you'll notice what it actually does is it brings in that end cap that gasket that I projected off of. And if I grabbed other geometry as well, it would bring those parts in. So if let's say, go back and let's go back and edit that in cap again. And let's say in this case, I wanted to project off, let's say I wanted to, oops, create a sketch on this face here. And this time I'll project that and hit OK. And I'll grab a, let's say a rectangle. Oh, I did start on the wrong sketch plane. Sorry, guys. Create a sketch on that plane. And then project that in. And I'll get my rectangle out. And we'll draw something like this. And you'll see this time, since I used it off this face, what's going to happen is it's going to also include this in my assembly context. So we have some sort of cap like that that goes around it. We'll exit my assembly context, save again, hit OK. Oops, accidentally wanted to close my 3D sketch, and we'll reopen that. And you'll now see if I go back into that assembly context, it also grabbed the other component. So I can go and edit this if I needed to. I can edit the sketch, I can edit the extrude, bring in more geometry from that housing if I needed to. This really helps when you're having multiple people working on the same design. Imagine if I had to work on this end cap, and traditionally, if I needed to go grab other geometry and Rob had this assembly open, I would have to be like, Rob, close the file so I can grab geometry so I can add this little flange here, and he would have to close it. But here I could have just edited that assembly context, grab more geometry, bring it back in, hit save. So the next one, I don't know if you this is one of my favorite tools in the world, is going to, if I had to share with files with all of you guys or even someone else, I could just say right click, share public link. And what this will do is create a public link, just like your traditional Dropbox, OneDrive, name your cloud tool. Let's go to the browser. And traditionally, let's start an incognito window because I was logged into the other one. If I type in, hit enter, what it will do is open up that file within a web browser. I could edit, view the file, and this is cool because I don't have to have access to really any data. I don't need to download a viewer like e-drawings or name your 3D viewer of choice out there nowadays. It does take a couple seconds after I save to get the viewable, but the other options I get while that's coming up is I get to choose what file I want to download. I can't tell you how many conversations I've been with customers where I was like, oh, I'll send them like an IGES file, and then for some reason I don't understand, they're like, I can't open up IGES files. I could open up STEP or STL or FBX. So now they get to choose what type of file format they want to download. They even, if they have Fusion, can just open that file right straight from a web browser. So there's some exciting stuff. I'm not sure why. Let's refresh real quick. And give it a second. Of course, this no demo goes great without a mishap. And there we go. So now I could view, redline, markup if I needed to, interrogate this assembly. But now we've had this functionality for a little while. But what happened was, which was a little bit strange, was let's say me and Rob are working in the same project. So I could have came over here, said, I want to work with Rob. I could invite Rob Cohee, Cohee at Autodesk.com. And now we're working on the same data. Let's say you might see in I'm actually very messy with my data, and Rob is very frustrated that I didn't make all my data in the right folder structure. I didn't name it right. So he's asking me for a file, and he's like, where is this file? So when I right-clicked and share that link, you'll see that what this actually does is it creates a viewable, like I'm sharing outside of the firewall, like I'm sharing to a customer or someone else that I don't necessarily want to have access to all my data. But now that Rob's invited to my project, when I go and copy and paste, and this is like Rob's in my project, it actually opens that file right within the browser, right in Fusion Team, to the place where it should be in the folder structure that we have made. Hopefully, And it did not, but it should have. But we'll move on. So next on the list, we'll go to drawings. And drawings, I know probably all of you are big fans out there of our drawings. We've been making tons and tons of improvements for our drawings over the past couple weeks, months, and year. You'll see even more. Rob's going to dive into more detail. This is a huge focus for us because we know that you guys out there definitely need to make drawings to make sure that it's manufacturable. So a couple things that we've added that just simplify things is, first, we've added the ability to create basic sketch geometry. So we know that we have we're missing quite a few tools out there for custom things. And sometimes you just want to have circles or to have sketch geometry just to make notes. So we could just say maybe like that. We could make custom symbols if we wanted to. Let's say we want to make like a upside down Pac-Man or something. I don't know what I'm making. But we have our basic sketch tools like line, square, circle, arc. And then also things to modify those are like offsets, trims, rotations. And once you have those, you can copy and paste them. You can copy and paste them across sheets if you needed to. There's some really fun workflows across the board with our sketch tools. And in addition, one thing that was a little bit confusing was all the settings on the sheet. So there's two types of settings, as you guys always know with drawings. There's document settings and then there's sheet settings. So the document settings are basically, if I had 50 sheets here, how they would work. Maybe I want them all to be ASME, maybe I want them half to be, or maybe I want this sheet to be inches, that sheet to be millimeters. Here on our document, we've added all of the document settings up here. They used to be located in a few different places, unfortunately. So they've done a good job. The user experience team has done a good job to consolidate those into one location so that we can, maybe if I want to display line width, we can go check that, check what kind of line width, which is also new. We could also get into changing the units. And then also what they've done, so if I have multiple sheets, you can dive into the different sheets and get the different types of sheet settings there as well and change those on a sheet by sheet basis. So don't worry, there's a lot more to come. There's been a ton of features added already for all the way from GD&T all the way through some of our like different tools to be able to dimension, like edge extension. So our virtual sharps, as I was known to call them. So, but don't worry, there's more to come, and Rob's going to dive into that in a couple minutes. Last but not least, I have 5 more minutes, so I'll switch over. We've added a new type of simulation type, and this one's been added a couple months ago. It's still in technical preview, so I would highly recommend coming up to your name, going to preferences. And within the preferences, if you guys haven't taken a look yet, there are a ton of preview features, because here at Fusion, we want to get the tech that we're working on in the hands of you early in the process. We love getting feedback on the tech, especially from you guys as customers, rather than us just giving feedback. So we give these previews out earlier in the process. This is untraditional to most CAD tools that I've seen out there. Especially in our industry. So we want to make sure that you have access to these tech previews, and make sure if you find anything that you don't like or broken, participate on the forums, let us know. You'll have people like Rob Cohee reaching out to you and pinging you to see what went wrong. So this one we're going to get into is a new simulation study type. It is called electronics cooling. So this is our first iteration for CFD. It's integrates straight into Fusion, which is awesome. I would highly recommend, if you haven't tried it yet, get a play with it. I've used some CFD tools in the past, and you had to be a expert, near level PhD student to figure out how to do it. This is the easiest CFD tool I've ever used. It's so awesome how quickly you can get up and running. Traditionally, you would have had to like create a bunch of surface and make this in a closed volume. And sometimes with geometry this complex, especially like a fan like this, it would not be that easy to do. Here, we could just define fans. And one place I highly recommend learning I can't teach you everything I know in electronics cooling today. But if you go into your data panel all the way down at the bottom, there are samples. The way I learn is just the way I do it. I basically just like to open up other people's files and kind of reverse engineer it, and see if I can maybe go figure out how they did it. So if you come in with the simulation samples, under electronics cooling samples, we have ready to set up. Basically, that's like the blank document, like I haven't done anything. We have ready to solve, so you could just basically go hit generate, and we have ready with results. So electronics cooling today is in tech preview. It's free while it's in tech preview, so make sure to jump in and play with it while it's free and test it to its limits. But let's go ahead and jump into the results. And this is one I always love, these results. They've done a great job porting over some of our other technology that we've acquired over the year. So basically how I set it up is I put a fan in there, I put some heat sources on some of the chips, and then I basically said, based off the volume and where the holes are, calculate to see if this thing's gonna overheat. And I set a goal. So you'll notice all my components, there's some that are pretty low, but you'll see that some actually have pretty high risk of overheating. And we even have one that's overheating. So based off of my current setup, this chip is gonna overheat. So I probably wanna add maybe either a bigger fan, maybe some heat sinks to it, just to dissipate that heat better. The other type of results, this is always a fun one to look at, is we can do section plots. Let's jump over to the section plot area. And you could see like how the heat is dissipating through the design. And also we could check, right now we're looking just at velocity of that air. Let's switch this to temperature. And you'll notice that we'll get here in a second is a section plot through where I section viewed that through the like XZ plane of how the temperature is dissipating. So it looks like this is a hot spot right here. So this is some cool air over here. So we're gonna have to make some design requirements, whether it's a heat sink to really lower that temperature, because we're definitely over that threshold that I set. And finally, we could get into more like section plots are good, but they're like 2D. It's kind of hard to see what's going on across the entire design. So let's hop into the more volumetric plot. And let's change this to velocity. And this is where it gets real fun. You can now see, let's play with some of these sliders, like where the heat, rotating, where like the air is getting stuck. We're getting some sort of like circulation over here. So maybe we need some sort of like funnel to flow this over better. Maybe even we could do a better job of getting the air across the design. So you could kind of play with these thresholds to see where the heat, you'll see this one's up here playing with temperature, and this one down here is playing with speed. So we could do some really fun stuff to like really narrow into where we want to make design changes if we needed to make some changes for this electronics box. But with that, I think that's about it from me today. Got right on time too. But like I said, make sure you reach out to us. If you have any questions, I'll jump in and answer the questions while Rob is showing what's coming next in the product. So get excited. I know I'm excited.
All right. I was trying to answer a few of the questions out there in the Q&A. There's also a few questions in the chat, Bryce, that I hadn't had a chance to get to. Maybe you can address those while I'm going over a few slides here.
Awesome.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Let me know, Bryce, when you see it.
I got it. Got it.
All right.
And if you guys didn't know, Rob is, yeah, go Rob, sorry.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, if you guys didn't recognize him, Rob is the master of all inventor videos back in the day. Make sure to check out his YouTube channel. He's got some inventor videos from long ago, which are exciting to watch, and they still teach you tricks.
If you find the one where I rapped in the intro, that one's starting to reach legendary status. I actually rapped to the tune of Ice Ice Baby. That was an inventor rap. And I was completely sober when I did it. So let's get in a little bit to the Fusion 360 roadmap. So those of you who just joined, I'll reintroduce myself real quick. So I'm Rob Cohee. I'm a senior product manager for Fusion 360 in the area of design and documentation. So my team is responsible for determining the prioritization of what we work on in, we can just call it core 3D and 2D design, right? I'll tell you one of the things, I took over the role about 2 years ago. I've been with Autodesk for 14 years, as Bryce talked about. Prior to that, I did a lot of work with Inventor. I started using Inventor when it was Rubicon. And prior to that, I used Mechanical Desktop, I used Mechanical Designer. I used a lot of different competitive CAD softwares when I was a customer of Autodesk way back in the day. So this is gray for a reason. One of the things that we really put an emphasis on when I took over the role was this idea of what we're calling table stakes. And table stakes you can define as when there's a professional level of expectation in terms of the depth of capability that has to exist in a product to convince somebody to switch from one application to another. Since we've really put an emphasis on what we're calling table stakes, expected functionality, the feedback has been phenomenal. Fusion with the manner in which we initially introduced the product, it was very much aimed at somebody with little to no 3D CAD experience. But as we kind of switch our business model and aim toward the commercial adoption of Fusion 360, those requirements begin to change a little bit. Not to suggest that we don't want the application to be easy to learn, easy to use from the very beginning, but also we need to acknowledge that there's some depth of capabilities and just expected workflows that many of you in the audience just need out of the application. And some of the work that we've done with positioning components, with the improvements around joints, Bryce demonstrated that 3D sketch capabilities and edit in place, to me, really unlocks a previously locked workflow for teams of people to work on Fusion 360. What I'm going to do is I'm going to brush on each of these a little bit and give you a little bit of preview as to what is in the works. But before I do that, I have to bring up our safe harbor statement, and just to summarize, I'm going to be showing you some things that you know are future state, may or may not arrive into the product within the horizon for you to make a decision on purchasing. So please don't make this something that you would leverage as whether or not you decide that you want to subscribe to the product. Please take this as informational only and an example of some of the things that we're working on. Okay, so a lot of goodness here on the screen. One of the things from a sketch and modeling roadmaps standpoint, as you see some of these ideas that we're working on, and these are things that we're actively working on. These are active projects that we have user experience teams working on. We're seeking advice from customers on what's the appropriate experience to get feedback as to what these things might look like. These, you know, you look at each of these and you think, well, yeah, I would expect to have that capability in a 3D CAD application. At each turn, we sit down and we evaluate where can we put that slight differentiation. You know, with the edit in place, Bryce told you how we're pushing the assembly context down to the part file. That is this is allowing us the opportunity to say that's a known problem. People expect to be able to edit a reference component in the place of an assembly. But how can we improve that slightly? And by pushing the context of the assembly down to the part file, what that does is it says you no longer are forced to open up this huge assembly just so that you can project the edge of one part and another and then do your part modeling in between. What we're saying is we can have access to that assembly data at the part level. And that's really going to kind of flip around the whole expectation of, man, I got to have this huge assembly open constantly all the time while I'm doing my part modeling. We're really excited about what that's going to open up. So a couple of things that we're looking to improve on. So text on a path is maybe the #1 forum requested feature. Which directly coincides with the ability to utilize that text in a 3D modeling application. So we align some projects together to do both text on a path and emboss. I'm going to show you a little preview of that here in a minute. The other types of things that you see on here, an example, mirror and combine and stitch. So one of the things I've asked the team to look into is the idea of combining the next obvious feature within a feature set for the purposes of speeding the time to complete. You know, if I'm working in surface modeling, for example, and I do a mirror, a lot of times the workflow is I would mirror it and then I have to execute another command to do the stitch together. Well, can we just write in the dialog box, put a checkbox for, hey, after the mirror, just go ahead and stitch that thing together. Don't force the user to go through another series of commands to complete what is potentially the next obvious command. We're doing some things with fillets as well. You're going to see some really meaty filleting capability coming out. And in fact, somebody asked me the question earlier while I was on Q&A. The work that we're doing around fillets is in partnership with our colleagues over on the inventor side of things. You know, they're also going through a reanalysis of some of their usability in certain areas of their product, and we're coordinating with them on what should be the expectation and the overall user experience on picking edges, and can we do things like selection filters within a command right at the command dialog box. So you know, there's not a competition between the two applications. We're actually working together in many instances. So got a couple videos here, and again, this is early code. I just wanted to give you a little preview. One of the things that, like I said, this is maybe one of the #1 things on the user forum for some time, which is the ability to do text on a curve, text on an arc, text on a spline, text on some sort of path. And you can see the revamped dialog box. It still looks like Fusion, still feels like Fusion, but we incorporated some things that were just needed for us to be able to complete these workflows. So text on a path, text on a moving path. I don't know that you'd ever want to do a moving path, but sure, demo's cool. But you know, the reason I wanted to show this is we're listening. We're not just doing things for the sake of, you know, trying to reimagine CAD at every turn. We know that these, you know, some of these basics we need to do, and we need to do them really well. Next one I'll show you is a little preview on what we're working on with some surfacing enhancements. In the last release, we improved the surface loft capabilities to maintain edge curvature. If you haven't checked out that yet, definitely check it out. Getting some really positive feedback from people who continue to use surface modeling as their means to explore product design. So here with our ruled surface, we didn't want to just do like runoff surface type of things. We wanted to enhance it a little bit to, you know, how else would you create that surface in any other feature than a ruled surface? And I know, Bryce, you're pretty excited about this one.
This one's one of my favorites. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
The next one I'll give you a little preview on is the work that we're doing around Emboss. So as I mentioned earlier, yeah, Emboss has been around forever. So we're not trying to reinvent Emboss. We're trying to do it just a little bit better. So here, typically in any other CAD application, you usually, your text has to be completely parallel to where you want to emboss. And what we're saying is you can't always get your sketch plane exactly where, you know, your emboss is going to be. So we additionally included the ability to rotate that emboss where you need it to be on the surface. So basically, if I had the sketch actually perpendicular to where it is right now, I could still apply that emboss to that surface. And you look down in the lower right, and this isn't just with text, right? We can additionally take geometry and wrap that geometry around a surface to create something that would, you know, in any other workflow, the geometry that is the resulting geometry of applying the emboss to the example in the lower right-hand corner, I'm pretty damn good with a mouse, but that would be really difficult to do in any feature other than emboss. So pretty excited.
Are you bragging that you're the best with a mouse?
I'm so good with a mouse that it ought to be a felony. That's a line from the rap. Anyway, okay, so I want to real quick touch on assembly concurrency and really what that means. So assembly concurrency is a project, we're calling it assembly concurrency, it's a project that we're calling it internally. And the goal of the project is to better enable teams to work on the same assembly at the same time. You saw Bryce demo what the current capabilities are. Right now it's in preview. We certainly intend to graduate that from preview and production in the very near future. But we also know that there's still some work that we need to do to improve on the existing workflow. While edit in place and the workflow that it unlocks is fundamental to our ability to deliver value to teams of people working in Fusion at the same time, we still need to improve it. And the next step in that is to create external in place. So the workflow today with Fusion, a lot of people use Fusion as a multi-body modeler. You create a local component, you isolate your component, the community calls it rule number 1, right? You create a local component, you isolate all of your modeling down to that component, the active component, and then you switch to a different component and all that. Well, one of the things that we want to do is we want to give the users an option to create a shared component. You could also call it an external component, whatever terminology the marketing department decides to come up with on that. Largely it would be a shared component where you'd be establishing your subcomponents and then assigning them to different users to go ahead and execute against. And the other thing we want to do is keep evolving that idea of context. So right now, the context that's created is only when you have the ability to, or when you project geometry. When you project geometry, that assembly context is established. What we want to do is not force the user to have to create a sketch and project geometry. We want to designate from the assembly level context that needs to exist in every one of the subcomponents by default, or you want to select explicitly. That's what that's all about. And then lastly, we want to improve the experience of knowing who's working on what, when, and where, and improve the exchange of when people contribute updates to an assembly, and delineate between, hey, I'm working on a subassembly down here, and I'm making a bunch of mistakes. I'm trying a few things out. I'm saving. But all of those saves, I'm not ready yet to share with the rest of my team. I want to kind of establish a different type of save through a milestone to commit that change to the rest of the team, right? So super exciting workflows and really trying to build out Fusion for teams. So I already talked about all that. And then the last one I want to talk a little bit about here is, in many times I have this conversation with many of our customers is it's the elephant in the room. For a period of time, I'll just be straight honest with everybody here on the call. For a period of time, the velocity of improvements in the drawings area was less than ideal. I think is a fair assessment of that, and probably the most PC version of, well, we were just flat slow. Well, I can tell you that there's been a significant amount of investment in resources for us to be able to significantly change that. You saw Bryce demo all the stuff that came out in the May release: drawing tools, cut, copy, paste, line weight control, settings in the browser, block editor improvements. That's just the first of a steady cadence of feature enhancements and our investment in the drawings area that we will deliver, certainly over the next 12 to 18 months. And I don't want to give you a scale as to what each of these blocks assume, but I can tell you that each of these projects that you see on the screen, we're actively working on them. I know firsthand, like when you create a drawing of a part that has a number of holes on it, you want to create a hole note. I get it, right? And it is one of the highest priority projects that we're working on. And I'll tell you where we're deciding what to work on, and determining prioritization, because we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in the whole of the product, and that's the great thing about being in the software industry is there's never a lack of work to do. There's never a lack of ideas as to what we can do with the product. But I'll tell you where we're both in the design side of things as well as in the drawing side of things, where there's no alternative workaround. My team is selecting those types of projects as high priority projects. If there's not a modeling workaround, and the only way to do that is emboss, then we're putting emboss in the product, right? So same thing with drawing views. We have a few drawing views that you can't create. And we know, believe me, we know, and we hear on every single one of those updates in the blog that, hey, being able to do drawings is cool, but when are hole notes coming? When are weld symbols coming? Right? So, believe me, we hear the feedback loud and clear, and we have prioritized and we have invested, and we will deliver. Or I'll probably be looking for another job. But that's it. That's it for mine. I think we have some time for some Q&A. Bryce, did any questions come while I was chatting there?
Yeah, quite a few, but I think I nailed most of them.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to put in the chat or in the Q&A panel, and we can, even if you want to see something else, we could stump the chump and see who's a better modeler, me or Rob.
Was there, I know that you answered a bunch of questions in the back. I know Rob before you started and Bryce after Rob started. Was there anything that you guys, excuse me, felt like was worth repeating that was on the answered side?
Yeah, I think the one that kind of came up quite a bit was related to drawing templates and DWGs. There are ways to bring in DWGs for drawing templates, but you have to do a little bit of work to associate like the intelligence behind it, and it's so worth it. Just do it once, and then that you never have to do it again, and make sure that you like put the rev number where you want the rev number, put the drawing number, like all of that. It takes a couple seconds. I mean, you could probably knock it out in a couple minutes, but then after that, you're done.
Do we have a quick tip on that, Bryce? Anywhere?
We do. It's on our YouTube channel. It would probably be called Drawing Template Editor or Import or something. I could find it and send it to the group. The other one was related to smart templates, which I'm glad if you guys haven't seen smart templates yet, I highly recommend it. I first prioritized making title blocks and then smart templates. We do have a whole live stream on smart templates. It's me from a couple of years ago, so you could go see me jibber jabber for an hour on just smart templates. It automates basically creating views and sheets across every type of design in Fusion. So whether it's a sheet metal part, assembly, just a component, sub-assembly, and it'll automate making all those views. And there'll be some more work to automate even more just outside of creating views.
Cool. I don't see too much of questions. So what I'll do is I'll give everyone, a little bit more to answer questions while I go over some announcements. I know, Bryce, you and your team are going to help us do another one of these that kind of is strictly for the manufacturing side. Can you give us an idea of maybe a couple of things that are in there that maybe would be exciting to come back to see?
Yeah, I mean, if you thought that this was exciting, I mean, what Rob has coming is super exciting. The manufacturing team has they've been just delivering constantly over the past couple of years, I should say. So if you haven't seen the manufacturing stuff within the last 6 months, you probably haven't seen it. They've been adding everything. It's crazy, and especially just stepping up our game, not only in milling but in turning. And I can't even tell you what's coming because there's some exciting stuff coming over the next couple of months. So the next one, we'll have one of our product managers that works closely with Rob, and then Marty Deans, who's a technical marketer and a great demoer. She'll be she'll be demoing as well. So I'd highly recommend coming. There's actually a question. I'm looking to output 3-axis G code post files to Multicam and Laguna CNCs. I'd have to double check on that one. I'll have to look through our post solvers, but that would be the session you want answered there.
Yep, that's yeah, I would take a look at that. And then let's see here. It looks like there's a question from YouTube as well. Bob is asking, can we bring in old school 3D wireframes into Fusion? I think I need to be a little bit more specific as to what the file type is.
There's a different scale of old school with me compared to Bryce as well. So, you're talking old school mechanical desktop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to answer that too is like it depends what file type. If it's DXF, DWG, or it's probably DXF, I would imagine, or if it's like a native, because there's a couple wireframe native files from other CAD tools that we might have to go through some workaround to get them in.
Yep. Yeah. If you do have specific questions, let us know. We can go ahead and point you in the right direction, or take a look at that workflow with you independently. So definitely reach out to us. And
Yeah.
if we need to reach out to Bryce and Rob, we'll go ahead and do so to get some extra help for that.
Yeah, Nigel, someone was asking, I know we're recording this. We're posting this on YouTube? Is there anywhere else?
Yeah, it should be posted on YouTube, which will ultimately get shared on like all of our social media platforms. But the easiest place to find all of this after the fact is going to be on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/KETIV Technologies. Or you can just search KETIV on YouTube, you'll find us. And I'm assuming this will probably be up sometime in the next week or so. There's some stuff that has to happen on the back end before uploading it.
So Kevin asked, are the new features panel available in Inventor or only Fusion? So I think you're talking about the previews, the manner in which we preview certain feature functionality. Inventor has a beta program that is different than the manner in which we kind of beta test some of our early features in Fusion. So the methodology of delivering previews of upcoming functionality, the intent is the same, the execution is different. If you're looking to preview some of the stuff that's coming out in Inventor, I would suggest that you join the Inventor beta program. But the stuff that we're putting inside of Fusion, we preview through your access to your preferences and enable that preview.
Yep, yeah, it's just the way that the application is like installed and updated on your computer that's a little bit different, right? The methodology between Fusion and Inventor, which makes it really easy for you guys on your team to be able to share what you're working on by just adding that panel, as opposed to, but in Inventor, it's so much easier now in regards to the beta program. You don't have to install anything. Obviously, I can't get into specifics, but you don't have to install anything to try some of the stuff in the Inventor beta program. And so that's beta.autodesk.com, and some of our friends on the Inventor team would really appreciate it if you give them their feedback. I know that I've been in there a lot over the last couple of years, and some really exciting stuff.
Yeah, the Inventor team has some exciting stuff coming down the road as well, so I'd highly recommend that as well.
For sure, and I just want reassure the community here. Inventor is just as critical to our success in manufacturing as we have with Fusion. And quite honestly, when I'm asked, and I'm asked almost daily, having formerly been heavily involved in Inventor and now heavily involved in Fusion, like people ask me, what's going on with Fusion versus Inventor? And I'm like, it's not a versus type of thing. And if you look at what we're looking to build with Fusion in the near term, Fusion's capabilities and all the technology that we're bringing into Fusion lends itself well toward designing products, consumer electronics, whatever you want to call it, but products in general. And the capabilities and where Inventor has found strength and a great deal of success is in the machines that make the products. So there's not direct conflict between the two applications, and we're certainly not, I don't think, suggesting to use Fusion when Inventor's right, and use Inventor when Fusion might be the right tool. It's really based upon what type of product do you manufacture. What are your requirements of a CAD application? And in some cases, it's very clear and very evident when you should use Inventor and when you should explore Fusion.
Yep, and we've gone through that conversation with a lot of customers. I know that Brian on our team is unique in the sense that he worked primarily as a Fusion person and then learned Inventor afterwards, and it looks like Brian's there in his room. But absolutely, so you know, Brian and some of our other colleagues have gone through that conversation with a lot of customers in regards to what product is going to be right for you. And sometimes it's a mixture of two. They're definitely not mutually exclusive. There's certainly some applications that lend themselves better to one application than the other, but as the products are evolving, those things will change. So definitely keep an open mind. And if you have any questions, like we said, let us know, pick our brains. We've gone through this a number of times, and Rob would be the first person to say, Rob used to be like Mr. Poster Boy of Inventor. If you look at YouTube at all, that's how I learned a lot of my Inventor stuff, is watching Rob's videos. So for him to say something like that, really, I think it strikes pretty big for me.
Yeah, so there's one other question from Sam out there. Is there any way or plans to link Fusion with schematics like electromechanical? If you're talking about PCB design, we have integration right within the product. We added it in January. It is quickly evolving to, it's powered by our acquisition from Eagle. So there's a lot of tech that we've already ported, almost all of it, to be honest, into Fusion. And I've been integrating to PCB design and CAD for years and years, and it's always a janky pass back and forth through an IDF or an IDX file, or traditionally step, and then it's really not linked. And libraries are like stored on multiple computers. It's a nightmare. Where with the cloud, using the power of the cloud with our libraries stored in the cloud, usually that's the hardest part of that integration, is the libraries of all the different components, but everyone's connected to the cloud, so that big dilemma is gone. As well as our 2D to 3D workflow is insane. It's a push of a button and it just goes back and forth. You can make changes to the board and components. It is one of the cooler 2D to 3D workflows I've seen for PCB to mechanical design. The team has done an amazing job.
Yep, and the speed at which you guys do this, it makes it so easy in regards to how the product gets updated. It's not a super formal reinstallation and stuff. It's so easy. So definitely.
It's harder to keep track of all the good stuff.
I can't. That's why Brian's there on our team to let us know.
I have to keep up with all the what's new Fusion every month. I have to take the notes because that's on me.
It's
Cool.
pretty tough.
I think that's everything that we have for questions. Again, I'd just like to thank you, both Bryce and Rob, for joining us this morning, and your teams for working so diligently on the applications over the years, and making it so that we do have to add a what's new for Fusion every once in a while, in addition to our regular Inventor, Vault, and AutoCAD webinars as well.
Appreciate the
Awesome.
opportunity.
Well, thanks, everyone.
This is fun. I'm glad to do it again anytime.
Absolutely, and then with the releases of you guys have on the Fusion side, it's something that we'll have to do more often. So again, everybody who joined us today, thank you for all joining us. Like we mentioned, we're going to have one of these for the manufacturing side of Fusion as well, so definitely stay tuned for that. And we'll see you again, same time, same place, every week, 10 a.m. Pacific. Take it easy, guys.
Bye, guys.